am Travis Keys. I am chairman of APA New York. We're a national organization that is out there to facilitate the best tools to make you a successful photographer. We're lots of professionals out there, but without community and people helping each other, it can be a rough road. And we're out there to help fight and advocate for you. Network, provide networking, education, and give you the tools that are going to make you more successful as a photographer. And one of the things that I was really kind of psyched about when I was, we've been doing this rock paper scissors paper Hahnemühle. I'm so used to saying it the other way. Rock scissors paper, obviously paper because of Hahnemühle, this speaker series now, and we're so excited about it. When I was first showed this new product, how old is this product now, Kevin?
It's been around for quite a long time, at least.
A long time, right?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
So
it predates us at Hahnemühle.
Is that right? So for me, it was brand new, and I had never seen the packaging before.
Your eyes lit right up. Your eyes just like boing right out of his head.
It was like, not only was it like the perfect size, it was the perfect, it came in a tin where that you could carry it. Everything about it was so exciting that I'm like, I have to do something with this. And there were so many things that in my head lit up like, oh, I can send this. I can keep it as a mini portfolio and put it in my bag and have everything printed out. I can send it to people. I can be out with people, show them my portfolio, which is so much cooler than a phone because it's tactile and you can see it and it just lives different on paper. And if someone really liked it, I could just give them that thing and it became so much more personal and incredible. So
Travis, were you reading my notes?
No.
You don't need me.
No, I do, because you guys, it's like, you're going to tell me so much more because I'm just starting to play with this and you've played with it for so long now. And like literally now I am printing on these things myself and they're gorgeous. I'm not even lying. They're gorgeous. So I want to thank you guys for being here today. And if you guys have questions, please put them in the Q&A. I'm going to turn this over. Deb, why don't you introduce our wonderful guests and then I'll jump back in and kick this off.
Sure. We are really thrilled to have Hahnemühle with us one more time. This is going to be a monthly series until we run out of topics. We're really thrilled that Hahnemühle is partnering with us for our rock, scissors, paper series because
you said it right.
Yeah. Well, that's only because you said it wrong. Because if you had us, I would have said it wrong. But they just make such gorgeous paper. And I say this every time we have one of the classes, and I say this anyway. Photographs deserve to live out in the world, printed out on paper. They shouldn't just be inside your phone, inside your camera, inside all your devices. They deserve to be out where people can hold them. And like this nifty postcard that Veronica mailed me all the way from California, and it arrived in pristine shape. And so I'm just a big believer in their, we wanted to partner with Hahnemühle because they make such gorgeous paper, which is perfect for our members. And because you want to show your portfolio, you want to show it looking at its best, and you want it printed on gorgeous paper. And I love these postcard. This is just so cool. When we saw these, it's like you can carry around the tin. Not only the paper is gorgeous, but the tin. It's like you can leave a really great leave behind, a really important prospective client. You can leave them a whole tin of a collection of your prints. There's so many things you can do. But so we're really excited. We're really excited to have Kevin, who's always here with us, and we're joined today by Mark and Veronica. And you're really going to love this, and print or perish.
What I love the most is we're always looking as photographers for different ways to make an impact, to market ourselves, to make something look different, to stand out from the crowd. And this product actually really does. And the fact that I can print all of these and put them in this tin, and I know it sounds like we're trying to sell something here, but we're not. We're trying to make tools for you guys to, and what I'm psyched about is that you guys are going to go through all this for us from different ideas and different ways to really use this product to kind of maximize what you are as a photographer and get those tools out there. But also we're going to tell, you're going to explain exactly the pros and cons. Well, not really the cons, but the pros and how to print these and kind of go over, what it takes to print an effective postcard and, your settings and stuff like that. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, Kevin, because you are the pros at this. And I'm so psyched that you guys are here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you again, Travis and Debbie. I'm Kevin Graham. I handle the eastern part of the United States here for Hahnemühle, and I oversee our Canadian operation at the same time too. Been in the photo industry 40 years, love it, big photo weenie, on and on and on. we got this divided into 3 parts. I'm going to talk about the papers that make up these tins because there's 2 different sizes, just so you're aware of it. Veronica is going to spend some time talking about applications. Please pay attention to Veronica. She is passionate about this, and she is the reason that 2 of our tins are top 20 sellers because she talks about ideas. Mark Fitzgerald will talk about printing them. So Veronica, quickly introduce yourself, Mark, and then back to me, and we'll get started.
Hey everyone, Veronica Cotter with Hahnemühle USA out here on the West Coast. So I'm responsible for education development and also the Western region, although I am originally from New York. I will always be a New Yorker. And it's interesting, kind of the nexus between the 3 of us. So Kevin and I have been friends for, I think, 30 years. We met back in the day. We were both at Ilford Photo. And then I met Mark at a presentation at Pro Photo Supply up in Portland, Oregon. And then we realized that Mark's from San Antonio. Kevin lived in San Antonio for many years. Mark used to go to the camera store that Kevin worked at. And
it's amazing. UTSA alumni.
Yeah, it is.
Go Roadrunners, baby. Go Roadrunners.
That's right. That's right. We went to the same college.
so it underscores the point that, you know, the photo industry is great because it's big enough that there's always room for more of us, but it's small enough that it's that 6 degrees of separation. And I, like Kevin, have been in the photo industry for, wow, I was going to say 30, 40 years. So it's been a blast all these years.
Okay, I'll introduce myself real fast. I'm Mark Fitzgerald. I'm here in Portland, Oregon. I've been in this business for a long time too. I worked at Pro Photo Labs for many years. And in the late 90s, I started getting into digital. Today, I have a business in Portland called the Digital Darkroom, where I pretty much help people with their workflows, help them with Lightroom, Photoshop, and all kinds of stuff like that. So I work with all kinds of photographers around the world every day. It's so great to be able to see other people's work on a regular basis. I get inspired all the time. And I'm really passionate about helping people understand this stuff. So that's what I do. And today I'm going to just talk about how to download paper profiles, how to use them, and just very quickly go through setup of how you might want to print your postcard.
There you go. So let's get started. So as I said, we're going to talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, and the papers that make up the collections. So bear with me 1 second here. So Hahnemühle Fine Art, we love being part of this series because it's a little more expressive. We can kind of push the envelope here on some more thoughts and ideas. And we're happy to be here. Thanks again, Travis and Debbie. We really appreciate it. If you don't know who we are, and I'm assuming everybody does, but not everybody does, we've been making paper since 1584. It's important to note that we are a paper mill. Our mill has been sitting on the same plot of land since 1584. That's incredible to me. We'll talk a little bit about the divisions or the businesses. We have several businesses within Hahnemühle. Traditional fine art. If Debbie was a watercolorist, if Travis was a painter or sketch artist, he might be using our traditional fine art products. Filtration and separation. Interesting part of the business, membranes for lab filtration. This division is making the consumables for the COVID test in Europe and has been deemed essential business. And we have technical and specialty papers at the same time too. Veronica and I are part of the Digital Fine Art Group, which is our core business here in the US. We are found in 85 countries around the world. Major hubs are in the UK, France, China, Singapore, and here in the US. About 180 employees, 200 employees worldwide. Most of them are involved in manufacturing. We have 7 here in the US. Our head office is in Dassel, Germany, which is in northern central Germany. If you ever get a chance to be in northern central Germany, please let us know. We love to show off the mill. It's a very impressive place. What makes paper? It's easy. Alpha cellulose, fibers, cotton, and we have some interesting new fibers, including bamboo, which is a grass. And then, of course, we put a buffering agent inside of it. Our secret ingredient is no secret. It's water. Our water is pulled out of the ground, as it has been since 1584, unfiltered. We put it back cleaner than when we got it. And because we sit on a nature preserve, we are completely off the grid, which is fascinating to me. We use wind power and solar power. but the water is the key ingredient that makes our papers consistent. So tonight we're going to talk just about a group of products that fit an application, and that's our small tins. As Travis said, many portfolio presentations, you can put business cards, wedding portfolios, what else? Well, Veronica's going to she could easily spend 3 hours doing this, talking about this. I've seen her at trade shows whipping people into a frenzy. It's amazing to me. So we're going to talk about what makes up the collections, and we have 2 different sizes. We have 7, soon to be 8 papers in the 4x6. I remember back in the mini lab days when 3.5 by 5 was the rage and people could print these out. I worked for Ritz Camera for a long time. Employee 8901 was my associate number. I can still remember that. And when 4x6 came out, it was like, this is unbelievable. Well, things have come back to 4x6. So we have 7 different papers. We'll talk a little bit about it, and we will give some tins away this evening, so stay with us. We'll give away some of our favorite tins. And then we have 3 papers in the larger size, and that's European A5 size, which is about 6 by 8. Let's just call it that. So in 4x6, we have 7 different papers, soon to be 8. And in the larger size, we have 3 papers to choose from. And we're just going to kind of briefly go through them so you understand some of the differences. So in 4x6, photo rag. Photo rag is one of our favorite and most popular papers. Our good friend Rob Penner, who Travis and I know very well, who operates one of our certified studios in Beacon, New York, he loves this paper. He says it's such a beautiful paper. Photo rag 308 is consistent because it's been made the same way for the past 20 years. It's remained unchanged. So photo rag is a beautiful matte smooth paper, and if you're struggling with which one to buy, photo rag is the way to do it. We measure our paper in grammage, grams per square meter. We don't measure thickness. So you'll see GSM come up a lot. And most of our papers are 285 to 350. It bounces around a little bit there. Looking for something very smooth, ultra smooth. Got a nice crisp base. Very nice, 305, a little bit lightweight, but you can feel it's not much difference in the 308. You won't notice any different. Heavier paper, cotton paper, museum etching at 350 GSM. Got this nice textured surface to it, does mailings very, very well, looks and feels like a postcard does. As we move into the glossy line, Fine Art Pearl, which is 100% alpha cellulose, has got a nice crisp base, beautiful pearl or satin finish, call it what you will. We move into our Baryta coatings, and we have quite a few of them in this lineup. Fine Art Baryta Satin, we're going to give away a tin of this evening. If you're looking for that deep dark blacks and beautiful contrast, looks and feels like a darkroom print, but you don't really want it that glossy, then the Fine Art Baryta Satin is an excellent choice to do that. Very popular paper. Photo rag Baryta, our most popular glossy paper. It's got the look and feel of a darkroom print. And then we have Fine Art Baryta, which is an alpha cellulose product. And the difference between these 2 papers, weight notwithstanding, base tint. The Baryta is more of a warm, creamier tone. The Fine Art Baryta is a brighter, crisper base. There's a slight difference in gloss. And the new addition to our family in the 4x6 lineup is metallic. It's in the US and it's not in our warehouse yet. We will see this probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Look for it on your dealers' shelves probably shortly, probably by the mid to end of June. So beautiful. An outstanding paper for both color but black and white at the same time. So we'll have 8 different papers to choose from. If you're struggling, Photo Rag 308 is the one to go. Looking at the larger sizes, the choices are very easy. Photo Rag 308, again in the larger sizes, Fine Art Pearl, and then Photo Rag Baryta. Again, Photo Rag Baryta glossy if you want to just keep it simple. So that's what makes up the paper collections. Of course, if you have any questions at all, we're happy to answer them about them. We make some 20 plus different papers, so we tried to narrow the discussion down now. And now Veronica will talk about how to make some money, how to think about ideas, and how to sell yourself in a very small format, which works very well.
Thank you, Kevin. And Travis and Debbie both touched on it with how do you want to look at work? How much of our lives are spent with this or computer, iPad, etc. And how much more engaging is it to look at actual prints? So if you think about it, how are art directors, gallery directors, creative people looking at work on a daily basis? They're probably going to websites. So if you have an opportunity for an actual sit-down meeting, how nice is it to look at a portfolio of work? And even if you send it to them, the opportunity to look at work. So, and as Travis said, if they're looking at the work and there's something in particular that catches their eye, give them the print. You can make another one quickly, but just make sure it has your logo and or your copyright on it. And I first got this idea several years ago. So I have the great good fortune of being married to a photographer, and both Kevin and Mark know my husband, Dennis Keeley. And back in the day, Dennis worked in the music industry. So he had the big 16 by 20 portfolio that he would send out. And a few years ago, he thought, I still want to show this work. People are curious about what I did before I got into teaching. So he scanned all that work and created a portfolio. And it's Dennis Keeley, 25 years of music. And literally, these are the same images that are in his portfolio. So he scanned them and now has these to show. And I can't tell you how many times he's given these away to people who admire the work.
No, it's just true. I have Glen Fry on my refrigerator.
And if you think about it, if I were to show you this work, maybe on screen here, computer, iPad, whatever, you're probably thinking, okay, how many images are in here? How quickly do I have to flip through these? Whereas when you've got a tin, it's 30 images. So you have an idea of how to pace yourself. And also, in my opinion, there's a different level of engagement when you are actually looking at a print, holding the print, studying the print, moving the print around in the light versus trying to get that same effect online. So that's one of the reasons. And as Travis said, these things fit in your messenger bag, your backpack. And I was going to bring out the one that I used to carry when I traveled all the time. And it had kind of that really cool patina of the old Nikons that had the dings and the scratches, etc. But it just, they really transport well. And even though mine was beat up, the paper was still in great shape.
Character, baby, character.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, Veronica.
Yes.
Veronica, can you hold one of those back up and show the weight of the paper, how it's nice and thick? Because that really is a great feature. It makes these go through the mail so well. So if you can kind of turn it sideways and just flip it so people can, there you go. Yeah, you can see kind of the weight of it.
Yeah, Veronica mailed us all ones and they held up. I mean, they held up great, right? We all got one. They held up great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and what Dennis did is that he identified who the artists are, plus his copyright on the back. And when we do trade shows, we play rock and roll Jeopardies with these, because some of these are so, 25 to 30 years old that you think, is that really Tom Petty? Yes, that's really Tom Petty. But what a great way to engage people in a conversation about a project, your work, and get them to kind of keep you on their radar. The other thing that I think of with these portable portfolios, the last time I saw Mark and his wife, Julia, who's also a photographer, Julia has a stunning set of animal photography. She's a pet photographer, and that is how she connects with potential clients. And once again, I think Mark does Julia, if they're just really curious about an image, she'll just leave it behind for them. But it has her contact info so that, hey, I really like how she photographed this dog. I'm going to call Julia Fitzgerald the next time I'm ready to photograph my pets. So look,
she's had people ask to have some of those that they can send out because they want their dog on there, and so she'll print up some for clients as well.
I mean, think about if you've got we're getting to the point now where we can begin to schedule meetings again, and say that you have a meeting a month from now, whatever period of time. Wouldn't it be great to send a reminder that, hey, look forward to seeing you on June 2nd, and include maybe your website, whatever, just so that you and your work is ever present. And thinking about mailing, say that you haven't engaged with clients for a while, either existing clients or you were just in the process of working on some new clients, and all of a sudden we went into lockdown. What if you did a monthly postcard, different image, but on the back it always included the same information, your website, your email, phone number, whatever. And this then becomes a small piece of fine art that they put up somewhere, and they're looking at it and they're thinking about you and your work. And it may not be next week, it may not be in 2 weeks, but at some point in time, there may be a project where this work is appropriate for the job that they're working on. If you're doing some kind of summer special, maybe send out a postcard with details on the back. And I keep referring to printing on the back. And here's an example of a promo card from a photographer I met a few years ago in Seattle. So beautiful image, and then you flip, and there's her name, her website, and I believe her website, and then her Instagram as well. You can't print an image on the back. The paper's not coated, but there's enough tooth or texture on here that it accepts text beautifully. Here are two other examples. So Kevin and I met a young photographer several years ago at a trade show in Vegas, and we introduced him to these photo cards. And before he left, I said to him, I'm giving you a homework assignment. I want you to come back and I want you to show me some work. So he put together these really stunning images. It's kind of hard to see, but he's as I mentioned, a young photographer. He works at nightclubs. He likes to go to the local music scene. So he starts handing these out. Anytime we saw him after that, he had a tin of these and would hand these out randomly. If someone said, hello, how are you? He'd say, hey, I'm Jabari Fletcher, take one of my cards. If I can ever help you with a photo project, please call me. And he has his Instagram, his website. And actually what's clever and smart about this is that he lists what he does. He is a photographer, a videographer, a content creator, a writer, and a blogger. So tell people who you are. Tell them what kind of work you do.
He played with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, and he was a professional football player.
Biggest guy I've ever been around in my life. Huge, huge.
But this is his love, and this is what he chose to spend his time doing. And as I mentioned, Jabari, anytime he met somebody, he would give them a card. Say that you have a meeting, say that you do a portfolio review. What if, as you're leaving, you have a clear bag with a couple of images and you leave those behind, once again with contact info, but a nice assortment representation of the work you do. So we have a whole stack of clear bags, and they work well for the 4x6 as well. Say that you want to do a mailing and really get some work out there to curators, art directors, designers, interior designers. We also have a whole stack of these Uline hard mailers, and we have the 4x6 fit in here, but this is for the A5 size, and a little handwritten note in here as well. Handwritten notes, the back has enough tooth or texture that if you want to do a handwritten note to someone to say, hey, thanks, it was a great meeting, I look forward to following up with you. If you're a wedding photographer, what if you send out an image from a wedding that you did before the pandemic, just to connect with your clients and remind them that prints are a perfect gift for any occasion. I mentioned photo cards. It's sometimes nice to sit down with somebody and get their feedback on your work. And if you've got an envelope of images, say, hey, look, let me give you these, and maybe we can connect in a week and you can let me know what you think of the work. There are just so many different applications for these. What if you're a food photographer? How about creating recipe cards? Or what if you're working with an interior designer and you want to take some perhaps entrees or things that are specific to the restaurant and create decor art for the restaurant? Or say that the restaurant maybe wants to do a limited edition recipe card. They're, just, this is something I did at the holidays because I make two things consistently for the holidays: cheesecake and quiche. And without exception, people will always say, so Veronica, what's your recipe for cheesecake? And I thought, okay, let's get creative here. So there's my cheesecake and there's the recipe for it. And at some point I'm going to start compiling the components, putting them all together, and then on the top putting the recipe card. You already saw how the postcards transport. They really show up well going cross country. And you can have fun with these things. This is from New Year's Day a few years ago at the annual polar bear swim. Those are the lucha libres. And maybe it's just a reminder to enjoy. If you're trying to pitch an idea for a gallery show or even a book, send a few cards to give people an idea of what the theme is or what the idea is. If you have a show, you can use these to actually lay the show out and do a sequencing. Oh no, maybe it should be here, maybe it should be there. I actually like to you can see behind me, create a kind of a salon style of postcards and images that people have sent me, especially during lockdown. And it also might be a fun idea for APA members to connect with one another. Maybe you could do an old-fashioned pen pal kind of project where somebody on the West Coast connects with somebody on the East Coast and you exchange work, exchange websites, exchange ideas. Or if nothing else, it certainly beats getting a piece of junk mail when you get something that's handmade. And no offense to Vistaprint, but if you send something that you've made that's on a handmade paper versus something that you got from Vistaprint, I think that is just light years ahead of the alternative. So those are some of the ideas. I've talked to people over the years that use it as a way to find creative projects with their kids. They'll print a kid's image and a kid in turn will get some markers, washi tape or stickers and bedazzle it and create their own unique work of art. In my office, I take some craft string and some little paper clothespins and create a little gallery in my office from one corner to the next with 4x6 prints. So the more you talk about it, the more you think about it, there are almost limitless ideas for both the 4x6 and the A5. And most of the ideas that I've shared with you, I can't really take credit for. Kevin and I do events over the years and people come up to us and say, oh, you should see what I did with the A5 card. I put together an A list of people I wanted to invite to a gallery show. So I printed an image from the show on one side and the details of the show on the back side. And just the whole idea of creating postcards really allows you to connect in multiple ways, different images on a different month. So those are some of the ideas.
And then, Veronica, that wall of fame behind you where you put stuff up,
Yes.
Giving somebody a photo and having them put it somewhere where they see it all the time is a lot different than, well, I see stuff on social media all the time, really great photography. I'm sure we all do. Sometimes when it's really stunning, I remember that photo and I remember who did it. But most of the time it's just kind of this blur that goes by. But if I have something that someone sent me and it's special and I set it aside, I'm going to keep seeing that. And a lot of us have a wall like that, like you do. I have a place where I put these as well, because I like to see them. It reminds me of not only that relationship with that person, but I get to see that good photography without having to go find it on social media.
Well, and Mark, you make a great point. I refer to these as a springboard for my memory in many cases. You know, I actually have some darkroom postcards. Ilford has the, Kevin, aren't they 4x6 with the postcard imprint on the back? And one that I have is a photograph of the gentleman that's always outside the Javits Center during Photo Plus with his fedora and the big, what is that? A
big old
graphic.
Yeah.
He's a legend.
Yeah, he is. He's right over there in the corner. And I swear the next time I go to Photo Plus, I am going to have him take my picture. I don't care. I'm going to do it this next.
I mean, you're right. We've talked about this before too. We're all blue in the face and we agree. Papers are emotional. I mean, New York City on Photo Rag 308. I mean, the big Christmas balls out in front of Radio City Music Hall and Photo Rag Barida. These are emotional images to us all. Send them to people. And even if you send them to your clients, you're just, you know, you're pushing these out, you know, hey, happy Thursday to you.
Well, and also it's a great way to launch a new project. I mean, I think everyone got a little creative during the pandemic when we couldn't really go much further than our own block. And it gave us the opportunity to maybe look at work we'd done years ago and kind of recontextualize it, or to come up with a totally new pandemic focused project. And this is a great way to introduce that work, share that work with other people. And let's see, where is it? When the pandemic first hit and we were all kind of freaking out, there are a few friends here in town that are also photographers. And we started we called it the Front Porch Project, or the sharing box. So our friend Mark would say, okay, I'm going to stop by your house around noon tomorrow, and I'm going to leave a tin of prints. So my husband would then have a tin outside waiting for him. So they would take about a week, they'd look at each other's work, and then they'd jump on Zoom and kind of do an informal critique, which allowed them to stay engaged without being in the same place. And it gave a fresh pair of eyes to work. And we also did a postcard project, which we launched on Facebook, probably in April or May, and said, hey, look, you know, we all are trying to figure out how to bridge the gap. So send us your address and we'll send you a postcard. Isn't it nice to get something other than junk mail or solicitations? So yeah, the more you begin to think about it. And actually, Travis, you have to hold yours up because you did a whole series.
Oh yeah, look at these, Travis.
Yeah.
Let me bring them up. And I got to say something just quickly, like, what is so amazing about this is, like, I had this tin sent to me and I knew we had this webinar tonight, and about, I think 45 minutes right prior to the webinar, I printed these to show how quick and amazing these look. And I'm sitting here going, like, I'm just going to sound like I'm trying to sell this, but it's so not true. They're just, I'm looking at these things. I'm like, these are amazing. These look so beautiful and they came out so well. And I printed them so quickly, and the quality of it, I'm like, this is something like I literally want to send to people in so many regards. So, you know, I mean, this is like the coolest way to market yourself and to have these tins. And you know what? And anytime you have a tin that you can, if you have a client and you send them a tin of these, and it's so affordable to actually work this into your workflow. If you're sending clients, stuff like that, the cost of like printing these 30 things and buying this is really nothing compared to what you are going to get back when the person gets this in the mail. Like, anyone gets a tin full of these things, they're like, oh, that's high end. You can put a sticker, your own sticker on it, or logo it. If you're like, you know, it's like, I feel like I should take this tin around the world and like stamp it like a passport. But I mean, just these things are absolutely insane, the quality of it. And I didn't spend much time. And I know, you're going to talk about, Mark, you're going to talk about profiles and printing on these things. And I can probably improve this from what I did. And I mean, it just took seconds to do all of this. And suddenly, like, I could leave the house and just like, I'm like, I want to like print these up and go to like, like get all my photographer friends and everybody have one tin of 30, and then suddenly have 30 people there and fill up a tin of everybody else's work. So suddenly now I have a tin of 30 works from other people and do like this photo exchange or mail these out because they're actually really awesome.
Basically, my head was spinning when Veronica was talking about all the different things you could do with them. And what I was thinking was, I thought if you're a wedding photographer, offer it as part of your package that the bride and groom you can create multiple tins, so every person in the wedding party gets a tin of prints from the wedding. There's so many things you can do with these.
Yeah, that's true.
It's you can do that for all kinds of events. You could do that. It's
very affordable. I write the 4x6 tins are $19 to $25 each, plus or minus, depends on the surface. The A5 larger are about twice as much. So,
and all I kept seeing was is her hold up the bigger size, and like, I got to get that.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yep. And at a certain point, I thought, well, why am I buying birthday cards? Because I'm pretty good about sending birthday cards to family and friends. So I thought, I'm just going to start making my own. And then I go to Paper Source because you can get envelopes that are really they have such a range of colors. So now I do my own birthday cards. We did our own holiday cards this year. And actually there was one where we kind of had a head strike in the corner because we were going a little too fast. So we took the pinking shears and just, cut around all four sides. There are no mistakes. They're just opportunities to make art. So that's what we did.
Do those go through the mail sorters pretty easily with the pinking shears?
That one we stuck in an envelope. We absolutely stuck that one in an envelope. Yeah. Yep. And I actually did an experiment with the postcards that I sent each of you. I used a regular old postcard rate stamp thinking, oh my God, it could take 2 weeks, but it took, I think I mailed them on a Monday and you got them on
got mine Saturday. Yeah.
So not bad. Not bad at all.
I loved it. I loved this, Veronica. What a great idea.
So we could keep going, but I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
She backs people in the corner and they're sweating. They're like, okay. Like Debbie's like, I get the idea. There's more. Yeah.
Well, part of it is like, I really enjoy talking about these. And I sometimes get ahead of myself. And then I think, oh gosh, we're running out of time. So I really want to make sure Mark has the time he needs, because we can always double back for questions. Because now perhaps you'll begin to think of creative applications. And if you do, please let me know, because then I add that in and share it the next time we do one of these.
Real quick question I saw in the chat. Where did Hahnemühle come from? I mean, interesting, right? In 1886, Karl Hahne bought the mill and he put his name on it. I mean, that's kind of it. In 1902, it became incorporated GmbH, which we still refer to at GmbH or the mill. That's what we internally call it. So Hahnemühle Mill, Carl's Mill. I mean, that's kind of how it came from, and it's kind of been that way ever since. But it's an interesting history. Please go on the website, look at the history. It's a very interesting. Think about 437 years of history. But I, just want to pass that along.
And also,
so maybe what?
Hahne is rooster. Hahne is rooster. So
that's where we got the logo from.
That's why.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
So the red rooster is our logo, and that's imprinted on the tin, not in red, but that's what the mill is. That's what the rooster is on the side, and it's got 1584 when we started making it. That's what that's all about. There you go.
Just so you can see a little better. There it is in the light. There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark. Right. All about you.
All about you.
Oh boy, I've been waiting all day for that. All about Mark. Okay,
tell Julia I said that. Okay.
I'll tell her that. Okay, so everybody can see my desktop. Okay.
Yes.
All right, so I have a couple of slides here that I'm going to go through, and then I'm going to just demonstrate a couple of things. I'll show you in Lightroom and then talk a little bit about Photoshop, just so that everybody can, whichever system you're using for your printing. And this is one that I did. It's our dog Jackalope running through some grass, and then I did some painting on it, made some new grass, etc. And this one I put in here not only so you can see how the back got printed. And what we can probably do, I'm going to show you a back in a minute that I have, and we could make that available to Kevin if you want to send that to people so that they can have it.
Yep.
So
When you're
Veronica, I
speaking
think
of
you
back,
have that
the
too.
actual where it says postcard, because that's not on the back. They're clean cards on the back, and you're actually talking about
Right.
that wonderful postcard stamp that I see.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, this right here.
Yep.
Yep.
If anybody wants that template, just send me a note.
Well,
There
why don't
are-
you send it to us so you don't have to deal with it all, and then we
Okay.
can.
Yeah, let's send it to have Kevin or Veronica send it to Travis, and then they
Perfect.
can disseminate it.
Perfect.
So one of the reasons I showed this one is the first time you do this, you might want to do a couple of tests, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And these top three are ones where I just cut out 4x6 sheets of paper to put them in to check my alignment. I didn't want to use up any of this special paper doing that. I didn't want to waste them, and I ended up wasting a couple anyway the first time I tried because some other weird thing happened. So one of the things I'll reference in these notes here is practice a little bit. And so you can see a little bit of practice I did here. The first one was off to the right a little bit, second was off to the left, and then the last one was right where I wanted it. And so in a nutshell, this is kind of the workflow. Get your photo looking good. Download the profile if you don't already have it from Hahnemühle. I'll show how to do that. Then you set up Lightroom Classic or Photoshop to print the appropriate size with the paper type that you want. And then this is where I cut the plain paper. I had some Canon luster paper that I used for that. I didn't want to use plain paper because I wanted it to go through the printer more like a regular printed paper would. It's a good idea to print the back of the postcard first. That way, if there are any marks when you send it, when you're printing the front of the page, if there are any marks on the back from the way the gripper's in the printer or anything like that, they won't be distracting. I've seen people print the front first and then they print the back, and the front that they already printed gets marked up a little bit, and it just doesn't look nice, and they end up reprinting the whole card. So if you're going to do the back first and then do the front. And then after you're all done, give it a couple of minutes to dry before you flip it over and start writing on it. These papers, they're coated, but they dry pretty quickly, but I would still just give it a couple of minutes. And it's really going to depend on what kind of printer you're using and whether you're using pigment or dye inks as well as to how fast that ink is going to dry. So here's the template. I have it on my website, but I think the better way to do it is to give it to you guys so that you can make it available to your members. So I'm going to talk about how to get the profiles, and I'm going to go to the Hahnemühle website, and I'm going to just go ahead and get the PhotoRag Baryta profile. That's the one that I'm going to be using for printing mine. And then I'm going to install it on my system. So let me just hop over to my web browser. I'm on Hahnemühle's website here, and I just go over here to Digital Fine Art, and then I'm going to go into ICC profile. I could go directly to the download center if I went over a little bit to the right, but I want to show you something. So I'm just going to click on ICC profile. And if I scroll down a little bit, here's my download center. And the other thing I wanted to show you here is there's also a section on installing the profiles. So if you have never installed the profile and you don't know how to do it, there's really great instructions. It's very simple. You just put it into a folder and you restart your Lightroom or your Photoshop, whichever one of those programs you're using. Usually you have to restart those programs so that they'll see the new profiles, because that's something they look at when you start them. So if you're a Windows user, it's pretty easy. Typically, you just download the profile, you right click on it and install it, and it takes care of it itself. With Mac, it can be a little more, there are a couple more steps where you just have to put it into a folder. I'm going to go to the download center here. So click on that, and then I just have to tell it what kind of printer I'm going to be using. So I'm going to be using a Canon, and then it wants to know which one. I'm going to use the Pro 1000. And then it's going to ask about the paper groups. And so I'm going to come in here, and this can be one of the parts that'll throw you a little bit, because sometimes you have a paper, but you don't know which one of these groups it is in. So you might have to try a couple. For most of the papers we're looking at, you're going to be looking at the glossy fine art or the Hahnemühle photo. But I'm going to go to glossy fine art. And when you do that, it's going to show you all the papers that are in that group. And so I was wanting the photo rag Barita. So I just click it right here and it's going to download that file for me. And I've already downloaded it, so I'm not going to download it again. So if I just go into my downloads folder, you'll see that I've already got it over here. And so this thing right here is what I want. They come in as a zip. So you just double click it and it will create a folder out of the zip. It'll unzip it for you. So this ICC profile, that's the thing that I have to go put into its folder. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. And again, Hahnemühle has their own instructions. The other thing that you want to notice here is there are instructions. And they're in several languages. So if I want to see the English instructions here, I'm going to just double click that. And we're going to just pull this up for a minute. And there is some information in here that is kind of important. This information is written in the context of Photoshop. So if you're a Photoshop user and you've been printing out of Photoshop, this probably looks pretty familiar to you. I'm going to be printing out of Lightroom. I don't really have to worry about black point compensation because that gets taken care of automatically in Lightroom. That's an option in Photoshop. Rendering intent would be if you soft proofed, then you would know which rendering intent that you want to use. And that's typically something in Lightroom and Photoshop. But the thing that's really important are the things on the right-hand side. It's telling me what media to use in my printer driver and what settings. So I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. I'll leave it there and we'll revisit it. So I'm going to hop back over to my handout. So once I've downloaded that profile, this is where I need to install it. And so these are the instructions that you'll see on the Hahnemühle website. I just have to navigate to this folder on Mac and drop it into this profiles folder. And if you're a Windows user, again, you can try right clicking and installing. That almost always works on a modern operating system. But if it doesn't, then this would be the folder that you put that into. One thing to be aware of on the Mac side, and I think I'll just show you this real fast, is Apple in their infinite wisdom decided to hide the library folder from us, which is a folder that we need right here. So one way to find that, if you can't, is when you have Finder open, if you click on Go right up here at the top, you can see that I've got library there, but normally it's not there. But if you hold down your Option key, it'll pop up there, and then you can click on it and get into it. So I found a way to make it stay there permanently. I did it so long ago, I don't remember how I did it, but it can be really confusing when you can't find that library folder and you're trying to install a profile. So just remember, go to Finder, click on Go, and then if you don't see library here, you can just hold down your Option key and it'll pop in there temporarily so you can click on it. Okay, so once you get everything installed, then you're ready to go, and then you just are ready to set up your postcard. You've seen a couple of different postcards that people are holding up. So for example, the ones that Travis had were printed borderless. I'm going to be printing mine with borders. I find that that is less problematic. I've worked with clients who had trouble printing these with borderless because they have rounded corners and ended up with stray ink inside of their printer. I haven't tried it on my Canon printer, but Travis was using a Canon, I think you said a Pro 10, and that worked out just fine printing those
Pro
borderless.
100, yeah.
Pro 100, so the Pro 100. So that worked okay. You can try and experiment like that. To be honest with you, I kind of favor having a little bit of border, so it speaks to me. So I'm going to show you how I get this all set up in Lightroom to make these prints in the Lightroom print module. So I'm just going to hop over here for a minute, and I'm going to take this photo right here, and then I'm just going to go over to print. If you are a Mac user, you're going to see a page setup and a print settings button on the left. If you're Windows, you'll just see one that says print settings. You would still go in there to set up your page size. So I'm going to do it here. I'm going to go to my page setup, and then I'm going to just tell it what size paper I'm going to be using. And even if you're going to be doing a border, it's a really good idea to pick borderless, because when you pick bordered, lots of times there will be a border on one side and not the other that the print driver is putting into it. And it can make your image be off center a little bit. So if your printer offers the option of borderless printing, even if you don't plan to do it, go ahead and pick that 4x6 borderless. I'm going to say okay here. And then I'm going to check my notes so that I do what I say I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is set my cell that the image is going to be into 3.5 by 5.4. So I'm going to come back up here, and I'm going to scroll up a little bit. And so I'm just going to put in 3.5 here. So I'm just typing in that number, and then I've got 5.4. And you'll notice that everything is off center a little bit. And that is this problem with these margins up here. Because I told it to print borderless, I can zero these margins out completely. When you pick bordered, lots of times there will be one margin that you cannot zero out. And so at this point, I've got it nicely centered. It looks pretty good. It's ready to go. One of the things that struck me about the cards that Veronica sent out that appeals to me, I'm going to hold this up. I know my face is probably pretty small, but she left a float on the bottom so that she could title and sign. And I think that's really cool. And that's something I'm probably going to start doing with these myself, especially if I'm going to send them to people. It just gives it that handmade look. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to make my height a little bit shorter. So I'm going to just drop my height down a little bit, and I'll go to 3.25. In fact, I'll just type that in. And it's still centered, but I've got a little bit more room on top and bottom. And now I can go to this bottom and I can scoot this up a little bit to give me the float down at the bottom. It's, you know, it's the way fine art photos are presented all the time. And they're presented like that because it does give you a place to sign and title. So I kind of like that, and that's going to become part of my workflow from now on, is just a little bit of float from the bottom. You can try a few different things, but again, practice on some other photo paper that you don't mind burning through a few sheets of it. Just trim them down to 4x6, or if you've already got some 4x6s, just throw them in there. So I'm going to go back to my notes for a minute. Go ahead.
Burn our paper. Yeah, burn our paper. That's what we want you to do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm
whole
kidding.
box just for burning.
Yeah, good point.
And when I start the fire on the deck today, I'll take some of that out there for that too. Okay, so one thing I wanted to point out, if we look at these settings right up here at the very top, I picked single image contact sheet. If you're a Lightroom user, you want to do that. Something else that I had to do, because this photo isn't cropped to the exact cell size, you can see here's my cell size, it's this black line, is that I clicked on zoom to fill. That's not something I would normally do with a fine art image, but it's okay here because it's a postcard. And then I can scoot Jackalope around to get his tail in there if I want to. Still gives him a little bit of room to run. So that works just fine for me. If you crop to this size already, if you pre-crop to that size, then it's going to fit right in. But that's kind of a pain if you're just putting together a card that you're going to send to somebody and it's like a one-off. So zoom to fill really helps that a lot. All right, let's hop back over here. So you can see that I set up 4x6 borderless when I picked my paper. I zeroed out all of my margins to make sure that they were good. And then I'm using this layout panel right over here to size my cell and to check all my margins. I really hate it when I forget to check a margin and I print a large print and then I realize it after I printed it. So it's something that I really try to pay attention to. So then you make your test prints. And to do that, you need to go through the job settings. So the print job settings. So we're going to do that down here. So I'm going to drop down to the very bottom. And this is where all my color management happens. I've got the print resolution. If it's a raw file, you'll see Lightroom will usually default to 240 pixels per inch. That's just fine. This is a TIFF file that went into Photoshop because I was doing that painting in Photoshop. And its native resolution is 300. So I told it to be 300. If I uncheck print resolution on a TIFF file, it'll just print it at its native resolution. Print sharpening, I always give everything standard print sharpening for the output sharpening. It just gives it that little extra bit that it needs. And because I'm using a printer that accepts 16-bit output data, I'm going to go ahead and say 16-bit. Even if you're using a printer that, if you don't know if it takes 16 or you know it doesn't, it can still be useful to select this option, because when all the calculations are happening, it uses bigger numbers. And if it has to round off numbers, then your rounding errors are a lot less. So it's a good idea to pick 16. If your printer doesn't take 16-bit data, you won't notice any problems. All that happens behind the scenes. Then the color management part is I have to come in and I have to pick the profile that I just downloaded. And one of the things that's a nuance about Lightroom as opposed to Photoshop is if I have to pick the profiles that show on this list right here. So if I had have just downloaded a new profile and restarted Lightroom, my new profile wouldn't be on the list. So you just have to click other down here, and then you go in and pick the ones that you want to show. I really like this because this way I only have the profiles that I'm using on the list in Lightroom. because I just pick them right here and they're good to go. And that way I don't have to see everything. If you've been printing from Photoshop, you know, Photoshop will pretty much show you every profile on the system. That still works okay because you know which ones you need. And then if I had to soft proof this, I could pick which rendering intent I thought looked a little bit better. I know from the past when I did soft proof this one that perceptual was the way to go. So that's the one that I'm going to pick here when I print it. So at this point, I'm ready to go. And now I kind of need to interface with the driver. And this is where it can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to go click on printer. And one thing I should point out in Lightroom, if you click print, it's going to use whatever the settings were that you used last time. And that's okay if I'm printing several jobs on the same paper with all the same color management. But if I'm printing something today and I don't even know what I printed last time, I don't want to click on print. I have to click on printer to get the printer driver all set up. So I'm going to click right here. And naturally, if you're on Windows, things are going to look a little bit different than it does on a Mac. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my quality and media. And so here's one of the tricky things. When you go to these different papers that are listed here, you're not going to see any paper that says Hahnemühle on it, because printer manufacturers only show the papers that they make. So Epson will show their papers, Canon will show their papers. And the way that you deal with this is you go back to that thing that the instructions I downloaded a moment ago, and they tell you right here which media to select on the printer driver. Because when the folks at Hahnemühle and every other paper company know that they need to pick an analog that's on that list when they set up the profiles for these printers. So, or for these papers. So this is typically something that's pretty important because you want to use this. If you want the best color management, you have to pick the right profile, and then you have to pick the right paper setting when on the printer driver. So I'm going to come back over here. And I'm going to, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick Baryta. So that's the one that I'm being told to select. However, this is going to cause a problem because that Baryta photo paper is a thicker paper. With this particular printer, my Canon Pro 1000, that thicker paper should only go through the manual feed. It won't let me feed it through the top feed. The manual feed is in the back where you stick thicker paper through. If I put paper in the top feed, it's not going to feed. The printer driver will just say, hey, I'm out of paper. You need to put paper in before I can print this. The problem is in the back, the little guides that come together to guide the paper will not come close enough for 4x6. So I cannot feed 4x6 paper through the back. So I have to break one of the color management rules. I hate doing it, but it's one of those things. And I found that still by doing what I'm going to show you, you get a pretty good result. And so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go to photo papers and I'm going to go to Photo Paper Pro Luster, which is one of the Canon papers. And that paper I can feed through the top if I want to, because I really have to feed it through the top. So I'm having to kind of break a rule here to make this work. And my thought process about this is it's a postcard. I want it to look as good as it can. It's not going to necessarily be hanging up in a gallery. No one's going to see it alongside of my other work. But so I have to break this rule and pick a different paper. If you were to pick Luster and the color comes out really horrible and you know you're using the right profile over here, then maybe what you want to do is just try something a little bit different. You could try another one that may go through the top feed. But again, my experience is the Luster works just great. The color is very close. I haven't had any color management problems with it. I'm getting ready to teach a black and white class, so I think I better turn that off on this one. Now, if I go back to the instructions for a moment, the other thing it said is the photo quality at the highest. If I come back into here, you can see that my print quality is standard. I could put it on highest, but I found that printing on high, especially for a small card like that, works just fine. It saves a minuscule amount of ink, but it just goes faster. You could try a test and do one at high and highest, and if you can discern a difference, then you might want to go with highest, but I think high will work just fine. So I get that all set up. So I've got everything ready to go. So at this point, all I would have to do is hit print, and it's going to make my print. And I'm going to hop over to my slides just to make sure I didn't leave something out. And so I think the next one is print driver settings. So naturally on Windows, it's going to look different. But if you've been printing on Windows, you pretty much know what to look for there. One of the things to be aware of on Windows, again, more modern operating systems have solved this problem for the most part. When you pick a profile in the software that you're sending the print job from, the printer driver should know to turn off all color correction. This was a problem earlier on with Windows where you would pick a profile and you would try to use this color management system, and then the color driver, the print driver would be trying to make some adjustments on its own. And that sort of breaks the whole color management workflow. So it's a good idea to check that if you aren't sure the first time you print on Windows, just to be sure that the driver is turning that off. It's not an issue with Mac. That's something that for a long time has been turned off automatically. And again, you saw that I picked Baryta because that's what my instructions said, that's the paper type that correlates to the profile. And then the other thing you really have to be aware of is that you're picking the right paper source. Because if it thinks I'm sticking paper in the back and I put it in the top, I'm going to get really frustrated because my printer is going to keep telling me that there's no paper loaded and I know I stuck that paper in there. So just go ahead and pay attention to which paper source you're using. And then one of the other things you have to be careful about, this is one that I did, we did one of these programs back around Christmas. And so I did one with the 2 dogs getting ready for Christmas. And you can see the one on the right, I got some, the paper dragged through there a little bit, because this is a thicker paper that's going through the top feed. I've only had that happen a few times, but if that happens, there is a pretty easy thing on the Canon printer in the driver where I can go in and it's a smudging setting. I would have to look at it again, but if someone's got a question about that, you can certainly reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer the questions if you can't figure it out. But if you're getting this dragging because it's a thicker paper going through the top feed, it's a pretty easy workaround so that you can get things working right on the second one. If you're printing in Photoshop, I'm not going to go into Photoshop and demonstrate it all unless someone wants me to. I'd be happy to, but just for the sake of time, what I would do is I would just use the crop tool to size my photo to the size that I want it to be. If it's going to be 4:6 or 5.4 by 3.5, then I just open up my print dialog and I go through my print settings, pretty much doing everything exactly the same way that I just showed you. And you do want to turn off in Photoshop scale to fit media, unless you're doing a 4:6, then that could be okay if you're having problems with your layout fitting on that 4:6 card. If you're going to try printing borderless on a 4:6, I'll be interested to know what your results are like, because the more printers I know that people are successfully doing that, the more it helps me kind of guide other people. Again, just be careful of doing it because you can end up with some loose ink inside of your printer, depending on which printer you're using. And then I've just got one more slide here. Some of the problems that you can run into. This was an embarrassing one for me with Veronica a while back. I was doing some testing on some paper she sent me. And I said, I don't understand what's going on. All your profiles are awesome, but this one paper, it just doesn't look right. And she sent something to Travis, who manages all that stuff over at Hahnemühle. And he didn't know if there was a problem. And I was going to make my own profile. And then I realized I was printing on the wrong side of the paper. So whenever everything goes off the rails, probably you're on the wrong side of the paper. And Veronica has a little trick for this. So I don't know if you want to talk about that real fast, Veronica.
Well, you have 2 ways to do it. You know, there's the tackier side is the coated side, but a few years ago, someone said you can accomplish, and it is true, the same thing with the Post-it notes. So, you know, you can feel it. The tackier side is the coated side, and it just doesn't have the same stick to the uncoated side. Just what I would do is get a little of the stick off of it, because you don't want to necessarily pull the coating off, and then just do it down in the corner. It's easy enough to identify with a Post-it note.
Yeah, and the other way, something we used to do in the darkroom days, is we'd moisten our finger and just touch the paper in the sticky side, but you could potentially damage the paper by doing that. So I like Veronica's method a lot more, and it's not something that has to be done in the dark like it did in the darkroom days, so it's easy to do. Just remember the thing that I talked about a couple of times, that if it's not going to go through your paper feed, you might have to be a little bit flexible. Most printers get the alignment right on the money, but sometimes when you don't notice alignment issues when you're printing big prints, but when you're printing little prints, that's when they start popping up. So you might have to mess around with it a little bit. So if I notice that, I'm going to cancel this. If I notice it's a little off center to the right, even though I'm doing everything right, I can just come up and work with my margins right here in Lightroom to take care of that. and that will scoot it over a little bit so that I can get to it. And then it looks like I had one more thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, all of us want our work to look as best as it can. And I know that for me, when my work leaves me and goes to somebody else and I can no longer affect it, I want it to be its best. But the idea is to just get something into people's hands that looks cool. It doesn't have to match stuff that you might hang in a gallery, but you do want it to be worthy of going on a wall of fame, kind of like what Veronica has behind her.
Well, and that reminds me, Mark and I were involved in a project with a few camera stores, one in Seattle, one in Indianapolis, and one in Berkeley, California. And it was just before the holidays, and Mark did a similar class on how to print photo cards, and participants at each store received 3 photo cards, and one had a postcard template on the back. So they were encouraged to create a postcard that they then either dropped off or sent back to the store. And it was a photo card to someone they didn't know. And these cards were collected, and each camera store had identified a nonprofit in their area, a nursing home, a local VA hospital, and then a shelter for domestic abuse victims. And a lot of these people don't have family. So it was a nice way to brighten someone's spirits for the holidays. And it was.
And I really like Travis's idea of a print swap too. ASMP here in Oregon does a print swap around the holidays. And that'd be really cool if everybody had like a little tin where they could get one image from each other person.
Yeah, I love that idea. Absolutely.
The hard part would be if you're bringing images to that, do you just print one, all of the same image, print a whole bunch of them so that everybody gets the same thing, or print a bunch of stuff and let people pick what they want.
Write it out.
That's right. Do a raffle.
And Mark, something else that you talked about that I wanted to circle back to, you mentioned that you print the back of all yours, and it's a similar process here where we'll do a whole series, and it's kind of like painting the bridge. So we do all backs, and then we wait a period of time and then flip them and then do all the fronts.
And let me mention something about that real fast. If I'm printing the back, color management isn't such an important thing because I don't even have a profile for the back of the paper, although I almost made one time. But what you could do down here is just say managed by printer. And then you just pick like a plain paper when you get to the printer driver, because you don't have to worry so much about color management with something like this.
And Mark, you also mentioned that there's a feature that eliminates that scuff or drag up in the corner. The other thing I wanted to mention is, depending on where you are, humidity can affect the paper as well. I mean, this is 100% cotton. So if it comes out and it's a little bowed, just bend it a little in the other direction. That might help a bit as well.
Okay, that's all I had. If anybody has any questions or anything, Travis, I don't know if you're monitoring that, but I'd be happy to answer.
I have, and I've been answering some as we go through. I know someone was asking, which I mean, a good question for fine art photographers, would giving or mailing these prints affect your editioning? And I have an answer for that, but I'd let defer to you guys first before.
Veronica?
I
So the answer is no. It should not affect, unless you're doing editioning of postcards.
Yeah, that's what I say. Editioning is based on size usually.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a print edition in a gallery or something like that, that's strict to that size. That's something like that. Postcards are not included in the editioning of photos. It's like marketing.
Really good question. Good question though.
Galleries send out postcards all the time that have images that are editioned, and it doesn't affect them.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, it's a good question. But yes, you would be worried about that because they look so good on these postcards. You're worried that you actually are giving something very well out. You don't make sample tins of multiple different papers, do you?
No, I mean, no, we don't. That's the short version of it. Yeah. So, I mean, look, we email me and we'll happy to email you a PDF of all that are in the collection, so your head doesn't explode. But we don't. That's the second time this has come up, only because we're pitching this more and more. So maybe we need to. That's a good.
Yeah, I think it would be a good thing to
Mhm.
put
Well,
one sheet of each type brand. Certainly, it's a great way to kind of print and see what you like.
Yep.
So I don't know if this would help, but I'm certainly willing to mail one of these out if folks provide their snail mail address. What I like about this, these are all the fine art papers.
The swatches, yeah.
Yeah, and it's all about the paper. So if you want one of these, I just need your snail mail address. And
Fabulous,
then you
fabulous.
can
Yeah.
cross-reference the ones that are available in the 4x6 and then the A5 size.
And something I like about the swatches is you can lay all those papers beside each other and see how the bases vary, because some are really bright white, some are a little off-white. And it's a great way to just very quickly go, you know, I want a really bright white, which paper should I be using?
Great point. I keep mine in separate and lay them all out on my desk and look at them in daylight, listen to them, you know, look at while I'm listening to the cars or something else, just see how they all go.
What is the best way for these people to get to their address to you? Because I'm sure some people are going to be wanting to do that.
Kevin, did you drop our?
We'll drop Veronica's email address into the chat. So if you're looking for this 2x4 swatch, send Veronica a quick note and I'll do that right now.
Fabulous, fabulous.
To Kevin's point, you'll notice it has a screw post up in the corner. Most people will unscrew it and just lay the papers out. And for this particular product, just pull out the ones that are available in the 4x6 and the A5, and then really just begin to compare and contrast based on base tint, texture, weight, etc. And there are some from each category, the smooth, the textured, and the glossy.
Yeah, so I'm going to drop our whole catalog. I'll put my Dropbox link for our entire catalog in it. And if you go towards the back, there's a 4x6 and A5 size. It's got all the catalog numbers. It doesn't have the metallic number in it, but you can easily see what's going on. So I'll put that in the chat right now. So.
Yeah, and Travis, feel free to share my email address with anybody if they have questions about follow-up. I'm always happy to answer questions.
Fabulous, fabulous. I love that when you were showing the A5 size, that when you were showing the music portraits, it's not, you didn't typically print it. You printed that square up and left so much room. You know, it was really kind of unique to see it printed that way. And I don't think many people would print it that way. And it made it really special.
Well, and that also brings up an interesting topic. How many of you or us have these archives? What do we do with that work? And these are truly one of a kind. I mean, that's a bleach and toned print. This is a hand colored print. And so this is a way for Dennis to preserve the original darkroom prints and have this beautiful reproduction. And obviously he's printed these larger as well.
And guess who's in pink? Who is that?
Yeah, you'll never, this one always stumps them.
Whoever guesses this will give a box of Photo Rag 308. Anybody guess?
Oh, there you go.
Okay,
Go quick.
if you move them closer to the camera.
You won't guess. You won't guess. No, it's not Mark Knopfler. It looks like him, but it's not Mark Knopfler.
Is it Dan Aykroyd?
Yeah.
So Veronica, talk while you're doing it so you take center screen.
Oh yeah, okay. So this was a artist who was compelled to do an extra album that he didn't want to, well, it's not that he didn't want to do it. It was not kind of his typical genre of music. But anyway,
Looks like Buster Poindexter to me. Neil Young.
Young.
Oh, someone got it. Kevin.
Someone said Kevin.
It was kind of a rockabilly album, and they took him to a nail salon that had these pink walls, and he
that's
back
great.
his hair, and that's the other thing is you look at images, and I'm sure you've all had this experience. So many images have stories attached to them, and you don't have the same kind of effect when you look at the image on a screen. But as you begin to look at here's Bootsy Collins, and Dennis tells a great story of Bootsy was in hair and makeup for 7 hours. And
every day.
yeah, so
That's a job by itself.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. So this, yeah, there's Glenn Fry. You know, so anyway, they are a springboard for memory. They have good stories attached to them. And I can't tell you how many times Dennis has shown those and people will say, I'll buy it. I'll buy it. Can I? Well, and that's the other thing. He's actually sold larger prints by showing smaller prints. They begin to think, well, a 30 by 40 of Snoop Dogg on my wall would look really great. And he sold a 30 by 40. Somewhere in here is a really close-up grainy image of Snoop Dogg that he sold. But you know, here's a pinhole of Sarah McLachlan. You can't, that's a one of a kind, but thankfully for digital, you can scan and do digital output. So it gives you an opportunity to think about your archive and new work and present all for clients.
I think one of the interesting dichotomies.
I was going to
Go
say,
ahead.
with marketing, with sending things to people, you always think about open rates, but a postcard always has 100% open rate. Nothing else has 100% open rate.
I'm writing that down,
Very
Debbie.
true,
I'm
very
using
true.
that.
That's good. They're
The
going to
other
be saying
thing
that all the
is,
time.
the other thing that's interesting is the dichotomy that it's a postcard, but it's really a fine art print. It's a one-off, someone printed that. It's on archival fine art paper. So I can see why someone asks the question about editioning. It goes beyond just a regular postcard, even though it may get all beat up in the mail and everything. It's a piece of art.
It's true. It's true. As you know, you can kind of see my little collection up there. There are several of these postcards that, as we've done these events, people were so thrilled that they sent me one. So I've got a nice.
I'll just put this way. I got a private message from someone that is in the group right now, and they said, "You don't know how ridiculously excited I am about this."
Oh,
Good, excellent.
glad. I
Our
mean,
work is done.
But I get it. Trust me. I think Kevin will tell you how ridiculously excited I got even before I got the tins. And now that I got the tins, I can tell you printing on them. I'm like, this is my next favorite thing to have these with me all the time.
Travis stopped the conversation. He's like, wait, what's this?
Let's go roll that back. What is that?
But the brakes came on, right? Yeah, no.
Well, I think you were going to give out a couple, right?
We are. So let's,
No, how many do you have to give out?
let's do 3. Let's live it
Three?
up.
All right. So what I have here is I have assigned everybody a number. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to randomly ask Siri
I
to pick a
figured
number.
that one out. I love that feature.
So what we're going to do here, I'm going to put in the chat panel your number. And I think I have everyone here. So if you're not here, let me know right away. And there is your number. All right. So let's see. We'll go with the first one, and we'll pick a number between 1 and 11. And if you win one, you don't get to win again. The number just gets wiped out. All right. So let's see. Let's talk to Siri and see if this works. Are you guys ready? So the very first one. Hey Siri, pick a number between 1 and 11.
It's 6.
Number 6.
Okay.
Charles Curto. Hey,
Charles.
Charles, are you related to Jeff Curto? Who taught at the College of DuPage, I think, for many, many years? Maybe not.
We'll see if he answers in the chat panel. And
Yeah.
Charles, if you are there, put your how should they get their address to you, or what's the best? Just
I
drop it
put
down?
my email address in the chat. Just send me your snail mail address.
There you go. So I make sure you get Kevin's there you go, his information, and send him your address and info, and he will send you the wonderful. Charles, are you here? You got to be here to win.
Gotta
Say
be in
yes.
to win it.
You're probably there. All right, we're gonna go for the second draw here.
He's at his printer, printing
I
postcards.
know, right? He's ordering on Amazon. Siri, pick a number between 1 and 11.
It's 5.
5.
So Kevin won
Kevin.
one earlier because he picked the name, right?
Yeah.
All right, so Kevin can't win again. We'll pick another number.
Well, he gets one because he picked Neil Young.
Yeah, Kevin, send me your email. Send me your snail mail address. Yeah, sure. We'll
So
take
do we
care.
still have 2 left or 1 left?
Let's go 2 left. Let's live it up here, Travis.
Siri,
Yeah.
pick a number
Good.
between 1 and 11.
So when
The
you
answer is 4.
oh, Dort. Kevin, when you said printing postcards, it reminded me of that skit from Saturday Night Live, making copies.
Copies, the copy man.
The Terminator.
It,
All right, here, this is the last one, right?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Siri, pick a number between 1 and 11.
It's 7.
Neil,
So did she do 4, 5, 6, and 7?
she did. She did.
That's interesting.
So
Didn't
Charles,
sound too random, did it? It did.
you are related to Jeff.
Any world.
Interesting.
Any world.
Ah,
Send me your email address and we'll get the, we'll get this taken care of.
Well, guys, I can't thank you enough. This has been fabulous, and I know that I'm going to be getting more paper. Ask Alexa for a second opinion. Someone said,
No,
like, damn it, I knew you should have used Google. Guys, thank you. This has been fabulous. I learned some stuff, great stuff, and I honestly can't tell you how amazing this paper looks printed, and I can't wait to bring it around and show it to people and give prints to people and use it as part of my marketing, because it's really that special.
Yeah, and you're right.
anything-
People said to me over times, I don't print small. I don't print small. And I'm like, maybe you need to. Maybe you need to think outside.
Mhm.
I got to tell you, the 4x6 is amazing, but the A5 size, I can only imagine that's a really great size, and to be able to print a portfolio that looks that good and bring maybe a small one and an A5 one and have them in the tins and bring them out in front of a live portfolio review or someone at in an agency or something like that, they look fabulous, and they have a response that is worthy of anything. I mean, it's just so much more convenient and easy to work with. I mean, they're fabulous, and you don't have to have one of these gigantic printers at home to print this 17 by it's just like you can print these on a normal size printer and really get phenomenal looking prints. Wonderful, guys, and I want to thank you all so much, and I can't wait to our next outing on our speaker series, which we'll let you know what that is on rock, scissors, paper. The Hahnemühle Speaker Series with APA. It's been an absolute pleasure. And any closing remarks from any of you guys?
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Go forth and print.